Okay, in this video I'll talk specifically about the requirements generator and how it functions. The purpose of the requirements generator is to introduce requisitions into the system, and it does so based on dividing these requisitions into two time periods based on the time period of the simulation. And these two time periods were devised out of research of data from the Haiti assistance mission. So if the time period is 19 days into the exercise operation or less, it follows this track, and if it's greater than 19, it follows this bottom track. And both tracks are similar in structure, just different in terms of the parameters themselves. The requirements are generated based on a discrete probability table that specifies the time between arrival and the probability of those specific time between arrival rates. Out of one random distribution. Next, the items are assigned attributes. The first attribute assigned is the ASL line number. Every requisition has an ASL line number, which ASL standing for Authorized Stockage List, which refers to the stockage at the warehouse. But every item has an ASL number. Items numbered 271 and less are actually stocked, and the rest are just reference numbers. So 272 is not actually stocked at the warehouse at all. It's just organized in that fashion. So not all items ASL values are demanded within this first period. So for example, we have the ASL number of 18 with a 0.15 probability in that first period. Again, this is also based on an empirical table. The next attribute, several attributes assigned, is that are a couple things in there based off lookup tables. This is the quantity required and the Army readiness driver. The quantity required is a fixed value based on an average of quantities required for that particular ASL. And the readiness driver is also a fixed value, either 0, not a readiness driver, or 1, that it is a readiness driver. And that's based on Army tables. So here is the lookup value table. Again, for the NSN, the ASL number of 18, it would have a quantity required of 1 and a readiness driver value of 0. So those lookup values are also assigned as attributes. The next attribute assigned is the TPSD value, which stands for the time, priority, source of fill, and depot. And that is also an empirical probability table based on the research and how that looks for the time period. It's important to note that all of the requisitions coming out of the requirements generator are a priority 1 because they're initiated from customers. And so all of the ones on this table would be time period 1 and then priority 1, which is that 1-1. The source of fill is the third number, and the last is the depot value. So you can see that in this first time period we have 4 sources of fill, and then we have 4 depots that it could be. And then finally, the last value, or the last couple attributes. Day is the day that the requisition originates. RET, all requisitions are given a RET value of 0. A RET value refers to whether the item needs to come back to the warehouse or not, and I'll talk more about that later. And then the FF value is whether the requisition was filled by authorized stocks from the warehouse or not. And for those two values, all requisitions are given an initial value of 0. Excuse me. For those requisitions that come into the system in time period 2, the process is the same. The only difference are the values. Let me back up just one step. To compute the day, the day value, meaning the day the requisition came into the system, it just takes the system value of that at that time, so the current time, and makes it an integer. So we don't have 9.5, it's just 9. And all items leaving the requirements generator go to accounting mechanism, which simply is for computation purposes. Nothing happens or changes to the requisitions. They're just counted to gauge how many of these requisitions opened or have the readiness driver attribute of 1, and then just to get a total count up here as well. So those route on through and then to the next portion where we check the attribute of ASL to see if it's less than 271, where it'll be routed next down here to the warehouse, and that'll affect this decision right here, which will take it to the warehouse and then down to the warehouse block. If it is not less than 271, then it'll proceed on, and then it'll enter either to the manual or to the automated, and I'll talk more about that later. But that concludes this video, which describes the requirements generator.